I didn't rule this country for 400 years, but at least today people are seeing me on television, even in UK. I have a university today. Even the children of beggars can go to university. It's not based on whom you know, but what they know. It's good if good governance is anything to go by. The government that took over from the time of Mickey Mouse independence couldn't build a high school for 30 years, but it was praised as a democratic government, good governance. Why? Because they told the ambition of the colonial master to underdevelop this country. 30 years, they didn't build a single hospital, major hospital, none. Not a high school. So if people are to develop, there are prerequisites. In Africa, our most dangerous disease is ignorance. And ignorance can only be eradicated through education. So if you don't educate the people, how are you going to eradicate this dangerous disease? And for these people to be able to go to school, they must be healthy. You don't build a hospital. It's not surprising that for 400 years of British occupation and looting of this country, they built only 2 hospitals. And in 1943, the main hospital, called the Royal Victoria Hospital, of course now I understand why the name, because it was appropriate. Queen Victoria was the worst ruler you can ever think of. She was the bloodiest of all bloody monarchs. Was described in 1943, January 1943, as the worst hospital in the British Empire. The only referral hospital in the whole colony of the Gambia was referred to as the worst hospital in the British Empire. In 1943, less than 100 years ago, Gambian animals live longer than their owners. Life expectancy in this country was 25 years. And there is evidence of it. When I saw this horrible documentary, I sent somebody to go to the Christian cemetery because normally they write ages. And you look at the oldest graves are between 5 years to 10 years to 15 years and 35 years. The majority of the graves at the Christian cemetery, which are date, go there today, you find out evidence of that. Why were people living so short? But one would understand if the animals were treated better. But 400 years or more, the British never built. They built only 1 high school for 400 years. 2 so-called hospitals, which were described as the worst. Now, if the capital of the colony of the Gambia in 1943 was described as a hellhole on earth, what about the provinces? So what is the definition of good governance? But Africans are no longer fools, Gambians are no longer fools, because if the British didn't care about education, that means they are not good governors. All they did was loot and loot and loot and loot. The only thing they left us with is unfortunately the English language, which we are going to change very soon to a local language, because we no longer subscribe to believe that for you to be a government, you should speak a foreign language. We're going to speak our own language. It's the English language and the necktie. You see, even the strongest bull, I have cattle, I have donkeys, I have all sorts of animals. Even the most stubborn cow, if you put a rope around the horns, it will pull you away. But once you put it on the neck, it doesn't move. Because if it moves, it chokes. And the moment we Africans discarded our scarf, because the idea of the necktie was taken from Africa and Asia, because in the royal courts and the West, they didn't institute the institution of monarchies in Africa. They found them here, and they destroyed them. They found monarchies in Asia and Africa, which made Africa and Asia so stable and well organized that we developed better than them. You think they came to develop us with our mosquitoes, malaria, and all sort of things? They came to loot. And when they thought that they've taken everything, they say, oh, go. In the Gambia, unfortunately, it's the worst story of colonialism. They kill all the elephants, all wildlife in this country. We had all I think we could, our wildlife, our flora and fauna could be compared to Southern Africa. Rhinos, whatever you think of in South Africa, has a local name here, which means it existed. Old people will tell you, oh, it used to be like that, it used to be like that. What brought the British in the first place to Gambia, which was bigger than it is now, was the trade in ivory. Because Gambia had a lot of elephants. We had even an island called Elephant Island. It was the ivory that brought them. They ended up wiping out the elephants and then turned around and started selling Africans. The British instituted slavery. So now, even for the next 1 billion years, the British have no moral platform to talk about human rights anywhere in the world. More so to talk about good governance. For 400 years, one hospital, one rotten hospital. When I took over in 1994, there were only 2 doctors at the hospital and they were volunteers. So, what is good governance and what is democracy? If the people were becoming poorer to the extent that a foreign head of state was shocked about what he saw in the capital, now who's a better governor? 400 years, one hospital or 2 hospitals and 1 high school. And the British didn't leave any building in this country, any building that is 2 stories high. In fact, most of the ancient buildings that you see were built by the Portuguese because we are the first Europeans to come. They built solid structure. Even the state house I live was not built by the British. It was built by the Portuguese. So where's democracy? Even the airport they didn't build. It was built by Lufthansa of Germany. And during the Second World War, despite the fact that Britain was fighting Germany, they have to pay royalty to the Germans for the use of the airport in the Gambia. So what have they left us with? Who's a better governor? 30 years of Mickey Mouse democracy. What did they do? Loot this country, take us backwards and further into slavery. Because I remember during the First Republic, with